Hi friends! Today we are diving back into Viseart's Bijouxette Étendu palette. But if it's your first time here, hi! I'm Alicia. Thank you so much for clicking on my video. And if you are returning, well, thank you for visiting me again. Kinky Sweat stands for my kinky hair and sweat life. I'm a fitness professional who loves things, all movement and beauty. If you want to check out what I do in between the makeups, you can head over to my Instagram. If you also want to check out my virtual class schedule, well, then please sign up for my newsletter down below. If you want to see all swatches and palette details for Bijouxette, I'll link that video card up above and video link down below. Many of you had wanted me to film another video using this palette because you're trying to figure out how can it be used for daily friendly looks. And daily friendly is different for everyone, meaning someone will be totally comfortable going grocery shopping with blue and purple eyeshadow on their lids. Totally daily friendly to them. Others not so much. And Bijouxette has the purples, the mints, and the blues, but also includes some of these neutrals here that maybe you tend to only use and you ignore the other shades. In my original video, I do have two looks, but today I wanted to go over how you can approach Bijouxette in creating daily friendly looks that primarily use the neutral shades, and how you can incorporate these other colors that might not be intimidating in terms of approach. You don't necessarily have to apply them on your lid. We can find other places on our eyes to use the mints, purples, and blues, but maybe you want to learn how to apply those types of shades on the lid in a way that will present itself to be more impactful. That is the video for today, fam. So grab your brushes, get ready for today's lesson. And why don't you come in a little closer? That's enough. Eyes are already prepped with the Viseart eye primer. Now you see you have, I would consider these to be 3 neutral mattes, a shade that you can use solo or to pair with the other colors in here to buff the edges. Now if you just wanted to use one shade, you could very much just use this matte here, blend it through your crease, maybe apply some under your lash line and be done. If you wanted to add a little more definition, you can go in with this shade here, stamp it along the lash line, not taking it beyond that point, and you'll have a more intense lash line, especially if you apply mascara or falsies. You could also take the same color under your lash line, stamp it in close to the lashes here for a more defined look. If you want to make your eye shape smaller, you will definitely apply a more intense shade top and bottom. And if you're like, okay Alicia, that's cool, what if I wanted to use one of these metallics? Well, you could keep this dark color on the lash and then maybe we can overlap it with the magenta shade. I'll use the same brush I used to apply the dark brown, and the dark brown here will serve as an outline, so you could follow along and just overlap that shadow with the magenta shade. And that's a great way to introduce maybe something you wouldn't necessarily apply on your lid, but just on a smaller portion of the eye. Well, what if you wanted to apply this magenta on the lid? Well, do not fret, because this texture is quite soft. When you blend it out, it diffuses a lot, and the color left behind is not like you have just this magenta shade on your lid. Is actually quite soft, and I think a great escape from your usual bronzes and coppers, and I would give it a shot. So if you already came to this point and you're cool, you're like, okay, you could always add to this. And I'll grab now a packer brush. This is from the Holo Kirameki holiday collection from the 5-piece set. This is Pine Squirrel, and a resilient bristle in that it picks up quite well but blends also. And now we'll take the magenta color just on the lid here, and notice that I'm not blending just yet. Your only task is to place the color directly on your lid. If you have smaller eyes, make sure you keep the color under your crease and use the edge of your brush to pull down. All right, we're good so far. We got the color on the lid. Don't panic on me, fam. Let's wipe your brush off a towel or a tissue, whatever you have on hand. And notice, yes, I am taking a brush that's a shader like design, but is quite fluffy at the end. If you feel more comfortable using a traditional blender brush like this, or maybe something with a more prominent point, especially, yes, if you have smaller eyes or deeper set eyes, you need something to get in there. That's why I sometimes like to use a fluffy shader brush, because since it is flat on both sides, you can get into that region easily. Now again, this is where we blend the edges of the shadow so it doesn't look abrupt in terms of where the color ends. It looks smooth and blurred. Make sure you hold the brush at the very end of its handle so you could apply little pressure, and then you start to take your swirl and twirl motions along the edges of the shadow, just so that it could look smooth. If you want, you could pat away if that's easier for you to accomplish. But what we're primarily doing is finishing the edges of our placement. As you notice now, it doesn't look as abrupt. And also remember, we started with this matte first, and that now serves as a transition. So the color was already there by the time we applied the magenta shade, and therefore the magenta shade has something to move into in terms of creating that really nice gradient from lid to crease. Now you don't have to use a matte. I just happened to start off the look with that shade. You very much just can use the magenta shade on its own, and I find this texture diffuses quite nicely by itself without having to use a matte. Now see how it's very soft? I don't think this looks so colorful that it's intimidating to me. Now I know my perspective is different, and if you try this you're like, I don't know, I can't get into it. I would commit to it, fam. Even if you just use this one shade, I think it's quite pretty. You could even go in with an actual pencil along the lash line if you want a little more definition. What I like to do after everything has blended, I take the same color with my finger just to intensify the color now on the lid, because this is a very soft shade. And you might find when blending it out that you might blend some of the lid placement away. Even if you go in a little more after that finger placement, you find that you have richer color here on the lid, and everything is really nice here through the crease. Lower lash line. Well, you could go in with the same magenta shade, and just for consistency's sake, I'll take some of that same color now with a much smaller brush compared to what we used before. A smaller brush is going to deliver a more precise placement of color. If you don't want it to drop low beyond your lash line, then choose a brush that will fit right under your lashes here. Something very soft so it doesn't pull on the skin, and therefore the application will be very smooth and soft. And if you see any parts that need a little more color, you can use that same brush to just pat down extra color so there are no holes left. Wipe the brush and take the first matte that we applied, this one here, and with the same brush, if you like, you could take this step, just now tracing along the edges of that shade we just applied under your lash line. What this will do is pretty much the same what we accomplished here on the lid, is just diffuse the edges of that magenta shade a little more. And you could actually use the same small brush to just go over the edges at the top again, especially here on the inner part of your eye. That's a smaller place, and that will require a smaller brush to work through. And that's it. I think that's quite nice. I don't think it's too in your face. Again, really nice to just place that color on the lid and lower lash line. Now to complete the inner corner, which I would advise that you do just to tie the entire look together. If you're lighter than me, you can go in with your highlighter and place that on the inner corner. If you're my complexion or deeper, then I would use any of these two shades, maybe the gold one. Let's try the gold one. I'm now applying with a smaller brush than the one we used just now under the lash line, and placing the gold shade on the inner corner here, as well as some on the innermost part of the lid overlapping the magenta shade. Taking that same color now on the inner lower part of the lash line, wrapping it around from inner corner to bottom. And in the same fashion, you want to pull that color over the magenta too, just so that it looks seamless in application and it doesn't look disjointed. And make sure you close your eyes so you can cover any parts that don't have any shadow or don't appear blended, using light flicking motions just to complete that application. Yeah, and that's our first look. I think it quite nice, especially the gold paired with the magenta, and now using this matte shade just to blur the edges a little bit to have it appear softer. Now we have the other eye. If you still want to just use the warmer shades, well, we can start off with this metallic here. Taking my Pine Squirrel brush again, and in the same fashion we applied the magenta shade on our first look, I am simply tapping on the metallic on the lid. Nothing more than this. Just get the color on the lid. Don't worry about blending. You want to make sure that the entire lid is covered, and then take the edge of the brush again right under your crease and pull down. You don't want to go up just yet, as we have not started the blending yet. So we got the copper on the lid. We can go in several ways. We could use this matte again. We could go in with this matte. We could even use one of these. Now keep in mind, even though these are warm shades, you're dealing with like a really intense looking copper, and if pairing it with orange and red or rusty red, it's going to look quite impactful. So if you're not ready for that, I would then go in with this matte. And because we had already applied the metallic first, we're going in reverse from where we started here. You could go in with the same brush, or you can pick a fluffier brush. This is my Refer 27, and with that second matte, tapping in a little bit now right on the edge of that metallic shade. And I'm not applying a lot of pressure. You want the bristles to glide over your skin so that it will gently manipulate the edges of that metallic shade, and that will carefully blend the metallic in with the matte. So now we have a softer placement of color here through your crease. Totally up to you whether you want to take your shadow out beyond the lash line or keep it more in. I like to pull it out just a little bit. That's my preference. You could also keep it rounder here, closer to your lash line. And just how we did in our first look, just light, short strokes here, carefully manipulating the shadow. And this is why I highly recommend Viseart mattes for beginners, because they just work so well on the skin, and with different brushes you don't have to work so hard in blending them. And if you're not comfortable doing the swirl and twirl or any other techniques, even if you just do this, they just move the way you want them to. And now we have our copper eye. What do we think so far? I think this is great. Now if you want, we can go back into this dark shade here, and in the same fashion that we did on our first eye, just stamp on the color along the lash line. This is a great matte because look how color rich it appears. You don't have to pull it across your lid. You could just stamp and pull. Yes, and notice that I don't have my eye all the way closed. I'm just halfway closed, and make sure you have the other one open so you can see what you're doing. This might take practice, that I understand. I've been doing this for a while, so I think I've developed that conditioning in my eyes to hold one open and closed while I apply shadow on the lash line. So it might just take some getting used to, but when you get the hang of it, it becomes quite easy to now stamp shadow along the lash line. And it doesn't have to be fancy. Again, I'm just taking it to the edge here, and it gives the lash nice definition, a little more punch of intensity, especially if you want to add some contrast from lash line to lid. You don't want the whole area to look just copper gold. Now, what can we do with our bottom lash line? Well, we could just keep it as is, apply mascara or some false lashes. If you want to just get the hang of introducing as many shades as possible to one eye look, then maybe we can try the orange shade. Now this shade in particular is a matte base with gold flecks in there. So you'll notice that it applies like a matte, and I'm taking the same brush that we use on this eye with that orange shade and pulling it under the lash line here. And I think that's quite nice. You don't have to apply this on your lid. If you felt, as we discussed before, pairing this shade with the metallic that we have on right now will be a little too much, maybe a little too literal summer hot girl summer eye, you could place that shade under the lash line, and I feel that ties in the look beautifully without it looking too much, right? In my opinion. I get if you're not comfortable going in with the shade, but I think it nice just to pull it under your lash line, have the orange shade come into the mix, and I think it works out quite nicely. We could stop here, but we're not going to. Maybe let's tap in a little bit of this red. Same brush, however, I'm keeping it right here on the outer part of the lower lash line, just to add this gradient of color, and then we'll have the rest of the orange flow from middle to the end here, and just light flicking motions, again, especially here, just so that it could feather out a little bit, barely touching the skin. Okay, very light in touch. All right, so inner corner. Now you can definitely go in with the same gold shade, which just for consistency's sake, I will do. I'll place that on the inner part of the lid in the same fashion that I did for this eye, inner and lower here. And take your time, use a small brush. You want to connect that application to what you did with the orange shade. Pull it through, have it overlap. And again, turn your head so you can see what's going on here on the inner portion so that it looks complete, that there are no missing links, if you will, in terms of your eyeshadow application. All right. Let's apply some lashes and I'll be right back. And here's a finished look, both with close-up and wide shots. I just wanted you to have another peek of our lesson. I applied chandelier lashes in Amore and an oldie but still a goodie, Charlotte Tilbury's Hepburn Honey, which I don't actually know if it's still out. Let me know down below. Paired with Pat McGrath's Permagel and Supernatural. Can't get enough. So hopefully this helped. We have 2 more looks, but I wanted to start off the lesson with maybe just more neutral friendly looks. But now we're going to go into the colors, fam. Again, this video is not to completely transform you in now you reaching for the blues and the purples from your collection. If you have Bijouxette and you felt intimidated or you simply did not know how to apply the other shades in here, well, the next portion, we're going to learn how to apply the blues, and if not on the lid, where to place it so we can still incorporate the colors and take advantage of the entire palette. With that said, I'll see you again in a bit. Okay, fam, the moment we've been waiting for, we're getting into the fun shades. Now, don't stop this video. Don't skip this section. If you find that anytime you encounter these shades or you have a palette like Bijouxette and you skip the shades and other ones have hit pan, we gotta show all the colors love. Don't mean you gotta put the blue on every day. Just saying maybe you should visit it more often. Eyes are prepped. Now let's grab our fluffy shader if you have it. Now my apologies for not mentioning this in the first section. If you don't have a brush like this, just use your finger to apply the blue, for instance. And we're starting off with the blue look, okay? I'll take my finger, close your eyes, and just start to pull the shade across your lid. This is what we're gonna do, okay? Tap it like so, okay? Try to stay under your crease for now if you can. If you have a smaller shader, this is the time to pick it. I'll grab the shader that I used before, picking up the same blue shade. And remember how we applied our magenta shade during our first demo? Well, I want you to do the same thing here with the blue. Pull down application keep the color right under your crease. Don't worry about how it looks. The edges will appear even. They will look unfinished because we're just focusing on applying the shade, okay? Take a breath. You're okay so far? Okay. Let's wipe our brush on your towel or tissue. You don't have any excess product, so you won't run the risk of applying too much, because use the tip of your brush now. You could either just go through in a rainbow way, just scooping over your crease, or you can go in a circular fashion, maybe half, like crescent moon style, just to now blur the edges of the shadow. You could also do the flicks. Experiment, use different techniques and feel out which one you are most comfortable with. And that's now going to diffuse the edges a little bit. If you're not comfortable going in this manner, choose a fluffy brush. I'm actually going to choose a shader again, but this is Blue Squirrel, so it's much softer, which means it will not over manipulate the product, as I want the shadow just to graze over the edges. I'm now going in with this matte shade here. Pick some up with your softer brush, and just over the edges of the blue, again in that same rainbow-like fashion, pull it a little higher, and introducing that shade will now blur the edges even more, so they look diffused and softer. Now choose if you want to keep this color in. See how it kind of rounded out here? If you rather pull the shadow out than pull it out, to do that you have to use that flicking motion, but just for consistency's sake and making this not intimidating, I'm staying inside my lash line. I don't want to take it beyond that. And with using a softer brush, applying that matte shade, look how that diffused the shadow. It now appears much softer than how it looked initially. And as we discussed when applying the magenta shade, when blending in that way, you might have blended down a little bit of the color. So go back in with your shader brush, same metallic blue, place it now on those portions that look a little transparent. Yeah, tappity tap along those parts. If you want to go back with your soft brush and just go in with the edges, great. Look, you did it. You did it. You got the blue eye. We're not stopping here. I just wanted to kick off the look with the step. This is where it gets fun, because now we have the blue base, which opens the door for us to use these two shades. We'll use the mint as our highlighter and the turquoise to add even more dimension to this blue. The way to do that is to take the turquoise shade with your finger, and now on the center, tap that shade on the blue, and look how that adds a little more dimension. It introduces another color, but not in an intimidating way, right? I think that further amplifies the look. And nice that you have the darker blue, that more cerulean shade as the base, and introducing the turquoise just gave it a little Going in now with the mint, and actually you don't have to. If you want it, you could go in with the gold or the more copper bronze. I want to go in with the mint because it's a lighter shade, and I think it will pair beautifully with the blues. Taking now the small brush and applying this shade not only on the inner part of the lid where it overlaps with the blue metallic, you also want to pull it on and around the inner corner. So make sure that application is complete. You don't want to stop on the inner part of the lid. You want to take it to the tear duct also, so that mint can serve as our highlight shade. And remember what we said about blending through the inner corner so it looks complete. There are no spots left open. What do we do with the lower lash line? Well, we can go in with the turquoise and then use a little bit of the cerulean blue to close off the edge. Taking my Esom W21 with the turquoise shade, and I'm using a tighter brush so I can keep this color close to the lash line. I have the control now. A fluffier brush, I think, more suitable for a matte shade that's not as tight as this metallic here. So we're just pulling it along the lash line, okay? We want to connect it to that mint color that we applied on the inner part of the eye. Now, see how we got to close this off? Okay, let's go back with our blue. same brush, and hit the outer part of our lash line, overlapping the turquoise and pulling it up so we can connect to what's happening here on the lid. And when you close the eye, make sure you tap on any color that you feel is missing, because sometimes that happens, especially it happens with me where I don't see parts that I have to fill in with color until I close my eyes and really focus in on that part of the eye. Taking a softer brush now, and just so you can understand what I mean by that, this is sable hair, it's a lot stiffer. This is gray squirrel, a lot softer. And a softer brush will lay down color gently, that it won't over manipulate the shadow that's already there, meaning you won't run the risk of muddying up your blend. Taking that matte that we applied on the top with the softer brush, just along the edges here, notice I'm not going on the actual color. I'm placing the brush on the edges of that shadow so you can softly blur the application, and it will resemble what we have here at the top. And you could also take it around in this fashion, just following the shape that's already present. Don't feel the need that you have to shape it more. Just go along with what's already there. The outline is there, and this is the opportunity now to just inspect your work. Maybe you want to apply a little more mint here on the inner part of your lower lash line. Maybe you want to bring it in closer over turquoise. Maybe you want to place more turquoise here on the center of the lid. If you see you need a little more blending, you don't actually have to take more product. Just take a brush without any and just go along the edges of your work. And then look. Do you have a blue eye? Let me know how it turned out down below. If it didn't turn out the way you were expecting or you felt you messed up, it's okay. Just get the Bioderma, start over again, or try again tomorrow. It's all about practice. For the next eye, what are you feeling like, fam? What are you feeling like? I think we should combine the rust red with the purple. And if you're wondering how in the world are we gonna do that, Alicia? Well, I think we should start off the look by taking up the purple metallic, which specifically to this palette, these shades here, the magenta and the purple, are a lot softer in texture than the blues. These metallics are a little more creamy and tighter, so they appear more shiny and more opaque on the lid, whereas the magenta and the royal purple, it's a little more soft. But I will still go in with a finger and start the look off with this application. The purple's also a little more crumbly, which is why I like to go in with my finger first, as I feel the warmth from my skin will better help those pigments adhere to my lid. How are we doing so far? Did we get the purple on the lid? Are we freaking out yet? Don't freak out. It's gonna be okay. Taking your favorite shader, it doesn't have to look like this, even if it's a smaller one. This is now to place the color on those parts that we missed with our finger. And again, we just want to keep it here under the crease. Tappity tap tap. None of this stuff yet, okay? Just focus on getting the color on the lid. This is where I think we should introduce the red. Just to go over other possibilities. If you were wondering, you could go in with that matte. You could go in with this matte just to blur the edges. Heck, you could even go in with the orange. Now I will take a tapered brush, and just so you can see, compared to what I was using before, this flat shader, which is flat on either side, and this brush is round all over. This is, I feel, more suited for the rainbow effect because it's flat on both sides. And if you have smaller deep set eyes, I think a type of brush like this, although that looks like a shader, where it's bigger, you can now pull it through the crease in a fashion that's going to blend out your shadow lightning fast. This I feel also good for smaller eyes, but because I think the shape is more literal for crease blending, we'll use this brush now with the rusty matte. Let's start on the outer edge, okay? And along the purple, you could definitely do the rainbow fashion. You could definitely do the rainbow application. So let's rainbow it out. I like to swirl and twirl. This is just the technique that I'm most comfortable with. But if you are a beginner, then go rainbow side to side And I'm not applying a lot of pressure. If you feel your skin is moving, then that means the blend might appear splotchy and uneven. Whereas if you use very light pressure and just have the bristles glide along the skin, that will ensure that the blend looks diffused and soft focused. How are we doing so far? Are we okay? Are we okay? I'm taking just a little more of the red matte, and I do want to pull this out a little further out for my lash line. If you do not want to, keep it in tighter, and this is when I would rely on the swirl and twirl to achieve this wing, because I have a little more control over the shape. And when it's traveled, now I'll do outward strokes to encourage the shadow to pull out a little bit further. And upon inspecting my blend, I see I need a little more shadow here. So I am taking it up higher towards my brow. Depending on your eye shape will determine how high you bring up this color. If you have deep set eyes, then you probably start lower and keep it lower. But if you have a lot of lid space, then yes, you could take it out further. So that's the gradient that we created with the purple and the red. I think it's really neat. Again, you don't have to go this route. You could go in with the neutral shade that I still think will look nice. Now keep in mind, the risk you run into when mixing red and purple together is getting a nice bruisey look on the eye. But sometimes you just have to take chances. Orange, this one here, with the same brush and flicking it now on the inner part of my eye. See that? You want to go bloom, 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 bloom. Very light pressure, just to introduce another shade that will maybe kind of bring a little bit of vibrancy to the bruisiness. But because I think orange and red go beautifully together, that created a really nice gradient. If you're doing this and you hate it, start over again, okay? Put the purple on like we did with our finger, and then go in with the more neutral mattes. That's your best way to ensure the purple will still look purple. And if you don't like how it looks with the red, then forego the red and save it for another look. I'm going back in with the purple with my shader brush and tapping it now more on the lid. And I'm bringing it a little higher actually, because I still want the purple to be the dominant color here. And because it is a softer metallic, it blends smoothly with the matte shade. So I'm not afraid to bring it up a little higher. And you can go back and forth between the two, between the shader brush and your blender here, just to refine that. Words, I'm losing them already. What can we do now on the lower lash line? I say let's introduce another shade. Let's go in with the magenta this time. I'm using a pencil brush that has a more pronounced point. You could go in with this type of a brush, more like a shader but smaller. You know, just changing it up. I'm keeping it on the outer part of the lower lash line on purpose because I want to introduce another shade and place it on the inner part of the lower lash line. And again, once we get to the end of the lash line, you want to flick it up so it connects to what's on the lid. And this is the technique I like to rely on when you want to introduce like another color. You don't want to totally commit to like lid and lower lash line, but you just place the fun color right here on the inner part of your lower lash line. And I think, well, you could go in with this color, the mint or the turquoise. Just for what's happening, I think we should do, you know what, I think we should do this color. I love bronze copper with magenta. I think it's so pretty. Now we're using a smaller brush because we want to make sure this color stays right here on the inner part of our lower lash line. And again, we're pulling it through, overlapping the magenta shade. And we'll go in with the gold again, and place that on the inner part of the eye. Now that we apply that orange matte with the gold flecks, I think that's a really nice combination. So it goes from gold orange to a little bit of that red, but we pulled in a little more purple because I liked how that looked higher, closer to the crease. And give yourself some bedroom eyes. This is when you're doing like this, so you can better see what's going on. I find I need a little more blending here, so I'm using my blender brush just to flick the edges. Something you can do also if you felt like the blend went too far is to take the brush you use to apply your concealer without any additional product. Just tap along the edges, and that kind of takes away some product. You don't want to swirl and twirl or strike it. You just want to tap it lightly just so it can kind of buff down the blend. And these shades you can apply wet. So if you wanted the purple to look more shiny, you can mix that with a medium, or you can take the color on the brush first, spray it, and then apply it on your lid. I'm just placing it with my finger right at the center here, right on the center. I want it to appear more opaque. You know what I mean? I got a little fallout from that purple as suspected because again, it's like this. Oh, okay. What was that? Excuse me. All right. Let's apply some lashes and I'll be right back. All right, our final looks from our second lesson using the blues and the purples. Here are close and wide shots of the looks. Hopefully this video helped, fam, in you trying to use all of the shades in Bijouxette in a way that you don't feel as intimidated. Maybe this motivated you to try colors that you would not otherwise. And again, if it doesn't turn out the way you were expecting or you hate it, always give yourself some time to try again and to experiment. That's really what it's about. And know that you're not going to get the most beautiful eye look on the first try if you've never worked on blending or eyeshadow application consistently, right? It's the same thing with training. You can't expect yourself to lift heavy on the first day. You have to start with no load and just learning your body mechanics first, and then you'll start to progressively overload the body with more weight. But when it comes to eyeshadow, if you don't do your eyes often, or you're now expecting yourself to like create these beautiful eye looks when you haven't even used an eyeshadow palette before, or maybe you haven't even used these types of shades before, to expect a transformation so quickly is not realistic, and it's okay, right? Give yourself some time, play with all the colors in here, and I think that might inspire you to maybe use other palettes that have a similar setup with shades that you ignore because you just don't want to deal with them, you don't know how, and they scare you, and you just use like 1 or 2 shades. Today is the day that you change that trajectory. Dive into those shades that scare you, because remember, bravery is still doing something even though you're still scared. Okay, with that said, fam, again, hopefully this video helped. I will see you down in the comments, and until then, that is all right. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope this video helped, and if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and maybe consider subscribing to my channel. And until then, I will see you on here again with another review tutorial, Viseart extravaganza, monthly favorites, or vlog. Take care, and I will see you again soon.